back? Yes.
Okay, this is Mrs. George.
Did you hit play?
I just cautioned
Yes,
you.
but thank you for reminding me.
So, you know. But, and put it, yeah, put it in jump drive and let me show you some, there's clickers and stuff.
I put the arrow just in case you missed me because I'm so small. Just to say her speech.
And remember too, the speech doesn't start until you say it starts, okay? So, and then until Kaylee pushes the button. Right,
She
Kaylee?
did.
She,
Oh, okay.
so apparently the speech has started.
The speech has, no, the tape has started, the
No.
speech hasn't.
Hello, my name is George Scully. Start right out. The electric bass guitar is an amplified instrument. It's basically the same design and shape as a standard electric guitar, except for it's got a larger body, it's got a longer neck, and it's a lower pitched instrument with usually 4 strings. It's mostly used to provide bands with low-end rhythm for such styles as like rock, blues, and jazz. But it's also used as a soloing instrument in such styles as fusion, Latin, and funk. I want to give you a little bit of background on the bass guitar, and I'd like to tell you what it is and why we use it. But let me start by giving you the basic anatomy of the bass guitar. We have the head and tuning keys, we have the neck, the frets, the strings, the body, and then the pickups, which includes the electronics of the bass guitar. Starting at the head, mostly at the head of the bass guitar we have the tuning keys, which are used to tighten and loosen the strings, which gives it different tones. The necks are usually much longer than a standard electric guitar, mostly made of maple. The bodies are made of maple too, but you can use any number of materials to make the bodies, such as graphite. Various types of woods are used to make the bodies, the necks, and the fretboards. The frets themselves are raised metal lines in the fingerboard itself that divide the fingerboard up into semitone divisions. And then we have the pickups. When the amp is plugged in and the volume is up is when the pickups come into play. The vibrations of the strings within the magnetic field of the magnets of the pickups themselves create low-level signals, which are then amplified and then sent through and out to the speaker. But that's just the basic anatomy of the bass. I'd like to give you a little bit of history, I guess. In the 1930s, introduced the early solid body basses. Up until its modification, the bass guitar was an upright standing instrument with a huge hollow body, a long fretless neck, and the hollow body was used to acoustically amplify its sound. It's important to note that upright basses are still in use today. A man by the name of Paul Tutmark developed the first electric style bass, which was fretted and designed to be held horizontally. The change in design was made the instrument easier to hold and transport, and the addition of the guitar style frets made it easier to play to tune, and actually consequently made it easier to learn how to play it. In the 1950s and 60s were called the Fender bass years. The reason being is that a self-taught electrical engineer named Leo Fender developed the first mass-produced electric bass in the 1950s. The term Fender bass was widely used to refer to all basses as a whole because of its dominance in the market up to that point. However, the term electric bass replaced the Fender bass title in 1969 with the release of a book called How to Play the Electric Bass by Carol Kaye. And though there have been many innovations since those days, such as the use of silicon rubber strings in the early to mid 80s and headless basses, the basic design and shape hasn't changed that much since then, short of the inner electronics and individual body designs. The purpose and role for the bass, I'd like to give you kind of lastly, is to kind of touch on what the bass is in music. The bass is a standard instrument used in many musical genres, including country, blues, metal, which I'm not going to play here. Reggae, jazz, soul, and funk. Yeah, that's the limit of my talent right there. The modern bass relies on guitar and drums in most musical settings to create and produce the songs that we're all familiar with, but it's not limited by them. The bass can choose different levels of distinction in the songs to give themselves a lead role or solo work. The switch to this style of bass enabled bass players to move into the foreground in a band setting in many ways, but I just want to touch on 3 of them. The first one would be volume. The first one would be volume. It can be amplified to very high levels without suffering the same consequences as electric guitars and acoustic basses, which would be feedback problems. The second one would be its easier finger movement. The smaller size of the neck, opposed to the upright bass without the frets, allows it for rapid and complex lines to be played on it without as much trouble as it would be with the standing upright bass. The third one would be freedom of movement on stage. The upright bass, or the double bass, it's a huge instrument. It stands on an end pin, and it's held upright, which basically forces its player to stand still in one spot. But with the switch to the electric bass, it gave the bassist more freedom to move around on the stage, to get closer to the other bandmates, and to get closer to the audience. So basically, I highlighted the basic parts of the guitar, the anatomy of the guitar. I wanted to also touch on a little bit of the history and the roles that bass play in music. But that's just some basic information. The bass is much more than that. During a football game, when people are watching the game, they're usually watching the quarterback, or they're watching the receivers that are catching that long pass when they run down the field. Totally missing those huge guys that are on the line of scrimmage that are keeping the other team from crossing over and sacking the quarterback before he can get that long pass to the receivers. The bassist is kind of like a lineman. He's part of the whole music-making scene, but he's often overlooked. My hope here today is, as a bassist, I've given you a little bit of information and got you to listen, maybe to get you to listen a little closer to that favorite song of yours next time it's playing, and also, hopefully, to give you some added perspective on my favorite instrument, the bass guitar. Any questions?
Just play something else. Salsa. Can you do that?
Just as long as you don't ask for Freebird. Salsa. I don't know if I can play salsa. I haven't played salsa in a long time.
Okay. All right. And
There.
anything else? Come on, you got to play one more thing for us. Yeah. Please. You've tantalized us.
Gosh. Wasn't expecting a request. That's expensive.
What's harder, playing in front of us or speaking in front of us?
Playing on the spot is like, I'm usually as a musician, you have like when you
Okay.
go up, because I've played in front of audiences before.
Mhm.
I mean, huge audiences before, which,
Sure.
you guys actually scare me more than them.
Right.
But we have a preset plan to know, we've at least
And you got other
practiced
people
stuff.
playing with you.
And yeah, the
drummer.
one thing about music making is that it's not just about the bass, it's not just about the
Right.
guitar, it's like the whole
Yeah.
thing.
I play in a little Jewish garage band.
Oh,
I play bad clarinet for them, and we got somebody with an acoustic electric guitar. We got a great drummer. Okay, and when you're up there with them, you're all protecting each other, and you're taking care of each other, and sometimes you can just glide right into the groove, and it doesn't matter whether you're a good player or not. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and that's enough.
well, and sometimes, when you get with other people, you kind of like, you just connect and you just.
It's funny, it doesn't always happen, but when it happens, it's like, wow, man, that was cool. I understand why people do this.
Yeah.
That was a nice speech, George. That was really nice. Did you guys notice like the previews and the play?